Hey everybody, Fatman here, and today we're taking a not-so-mini look at a very, very special mini-series. Since my Gravity Falls video, link in the description, you lovely people in the comment sections have been very adamant about me checking out a few shows, with Over the Garden Wall coming in the top 3 of recommendations. More often than not, this series in particular has been recommended in conjunction with stuff I already really love, like the aforementioned Gravity Falls or Courage the Cowardly Dog. And so as not to bury the lead here, I'll just come right out and say it. I absolutely adored Over the Garden Wall. Created by Patrick McHale as a 10-episode miniseries for Cartoon Network, their first ever, Over the Garden Wall hits a sweet spot in these 10 episodes than some shows can hit in 100. The series follows two brothers who find themselves lost in a strange land dubbed only as The Unknown, on their quest to get out of there and find their way back home. I fell in love with this world and its characters, and that has a lot to do with the general vibe presented throughout the series' run. I've watched the series through twice now, and I always get that early, sort of creepy vibe present in Courage the Cowardly Dog, with the more modern animation and humor approach in something like a Gravity Falls or Phineas and Ferb. There's also like a sprinkle of indie game that kind of bridges it all together. Now I know that sounds kinda odd, but I get this kind of undercurrent of like Cuphead or Hat in Time, most exemplified in the Cloud City sequence in episode 8. And I gotta tell you, I am all here for it. The music, performed mostly by American folk band The Blasting Company, also gels perfectly with the vibe and aesthetic of the series, and while I can't say every single song is a banger, the music hits 9 out of 10 times. Based on McHale's short film Tome of the Unknown, Over the Garden Wall debuted on November 3rd, 2014 and wrapped its 10-episode run-up 4 days later on November 7th. Another CalArts graduate, McHale also worked on Adventure Time and The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. And this just can't be a coincidence anymore. Apparently, if you've graduated from the California Institute of the Arts and you are in some way, shape, or form associated with Pendleton Ward, I'm probably gonna fall madly in love with whatever show you choose to go create after you're done fooling around with Adventure Time. Isn't that right, Patrick McHale, J.G. Quintel, and Alex Hirsch? So as stated earlier, Over the Garden Wall is composed of only 10 episodes. While I do think that the miniseries formatting definitely benefits a story like this, I do wish it was a few episodes more, as McHale had originally envisioned 18 chapters before cutting it to 10 to accommodate time and budget restraints. I would have loved to see a few more episodes, but McHale had originally envisioned a 4-episode arc where Greg and Wirt turned into animals, so maybe 10 was for the best? Speaking of Wirt and Greg, can we talk about how phenomenal this voice cast is? None other than Frodo Baggins himself, Elijah Wood plays Wirt while Colin Dean brings Greg to life. I'm admittedly not a Loud House fan and never really thought much of Dean's performance across the few episodes of that show that I have seen, but this kid is killing it here. Greg is loud, funny, and bombastic, and I usually hate these kinds of characters, but Over the Garden Wall really makes this work. Now maybe it's due to the juxtaposition of Greg's character in the more gloomy and serious world. Maybe it's due to the fact that there really isn't another character similar to him in personality. I really can't put my finger on it, but Greg is fantastic. In contrast, Wirt is the more subdued and serious brother, but he does have a jokey side that really hits for me as well. He's not constantly cracking jokes or making weird sounds like Greg is, but Wirt does get a few chuckles, and Wood's exceptional delivery lends a lot to that. Elijah Wood is a phenomenal actor. I'd be remiss not to mention my absolute love for the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But I feel like people also forget how much of an excellent voice actor Elijah Wood is.
Gandalf?
I've always loved his work as the titular protagonist in the movie 9. Even when he's working on some hot, molten cancer like the Legend of Spyro games, he's usually doing a pretty good job. Christopher Lloyd as the Woodsman is a slam dunk for me, and Jack Jones as Greg's pet frog is another hilariously perfect casting choice. Samuel Ramey is also putting in the work here, and he does an excellent job at making the beast menacing, as well as giving him this touch of devilish whimsy. and that makes the character eternally memorable despite his limited appearances. I would also like to formally apologize to Mr. Raimi for thinking he was James Earl Jones for the first handful of episodes. That's my bad. I won't spoil it for people who haven't seen the series yet, but Tim Curry and John Cleese lend their talents in the most unconventional way, but they are both in some absolutely home run roles. So, into the unknown we go, and while Elsa is nowhere to be found, we begin with Wirt and Greg running into the woodsmen and being warned about the horror that is the Beast. The premiere episode does a spectacular job of setting the tone for what the rest of the series is going to look like. Wirt is subdued and a little clumsy. Greg is optimistic and cheerful. That demon wolf thing is creepy as hell. And all in all, we are off to a banger start. I love this initial setup. The audience is given a very serious and threatening warning about the Beast, who apparently is lurking in this strange land and will come after the brothers at any given moment. We're then given a smaller scale threat in the wolf-like creature, serving to demonstrate the unconventional nature of this world and its creatures, which establishes that even if Wirt and Greg aren't dealing with the Beast himself, there are still many dangers just littered around the unknown. The woodsman is intentionally confusing, and while he does help the brothers in this episode, the verdict is still out on whether he can be trusted, and that's a trait consistently found in his character for the entire run of the show. However, through all of this, Greg is running around and throwing candy and pretty much embodying every little brother tag-along stereotype there is to embody. Meanwhile, Wirt's looking out for them and just trying to get them back home. Over the Garden Wall tells you almost everything you need to know about Wirt and Greg in the first 11 minutes they're on screen. That way, as the series progresses, we get more character building and we're not spending any time wondering who these two are. And that's done exceedingly well and serves the pacing perfectly. As a matter of fact, I consider it a necessity in a series as short as this. And these writers not only understood the assignment, but they aced the test, if you ask me. Running gags for me can also be pretty hit or miss depending on how they're structured, but I laughed every single time they made a joke about the name of Greg's pet frog. And later on in the series, I was even confused when Greg would randomly shout the name of a president out while he was referring to the frog, so this joke gets an A+ for me. We move on to the town of Pottsfield, which doubles down on the creepy atmosphere, but also ramps up the ridiculousness of the situation. The brothers are never in any real danger here, but the lead up to that is done so masterfully well, and highlights the more lighter tone that the series takes in approach to its characters and its setting, or even the characters who are supposed to be traditionally scary. Over the Garden Wall almost never commits to hitting the gas pedal on something that's supposed to be traditionally creepy or scary, opting instead to reveal a humorous undertone to something previously thought perilous, but I don't think it really needs to commit to that idea that hard. The looming threat of the Beast, and the few instances across the series where it does really commit to something being hair-raising, is more than enough, and I feel like this team really struck a good balance between lighthearted, scary, and the more wacky elements of everything going on. We're also introduced to Beatrice here, Bluebird, who offers to take the boys to Adelaide of the Pasture, the good woman of the woods who can get them home. Melanie Linsky is doing the voice work here, and she's so snarky and sassy. I love this performance. Especially when Beatrice and Wirt get a chance to play off each other, as she can be really antagonistic towards him. So, I've been heaping a lot of praise on the series so far, but the next two episodes do bring up a small critique I have with the pacing of the show. Schooltown Follies, well, a serviceable episode, leans a little bit more on the self-contained side and doesn't really do anything to push the narrative forward. I'm not going to say the episode isn't charming because that's something only an idiot would say, but yeah, I don't know. We make a pit stop to go to school and that's kind of it. Don't get me wrong, there are a couple of funny jokes, and Greg sings the most annoying song in the universe. Oh, did I say annoying just then? What I meant to say was, Greg sings a song so ridiculously catchy that it has been stuck in my head rent-free since I watched this show 2 weeks ago at this point, made its way into my Spotify searches, stuffed snugly between Slayer and Motorhead, Make It Make Sense, and to top it all off, I am never in my life going to be able to eat freaking potatoes again like a normal human being. This is the new normal. It's a really good song. Also, quick shout out to Juliana Shahid, who does a fantastic cover of Potatoes and Molasses. You should check her channel out. She does a bunch of good Over the Garden Wall stuff, as well as having some really cool original stuff. I personally like the track Kids a lot. Anyway, the episode is fine, but when you have such limited time to tell a story, every minute counts, and I just can't help but feel like the show was kinda dragging its feet here. And unfortunately, the same goes for most of the next episode. The exception being that episode 4, Songs of the Dark Lantern, has a closing scene that perfectly pushes the narrative forward, and every song here is a bop. The school music is fine and fun and all, but everything here is just kicked up a notch. And that may have something to do with the fact that I'm madly in love with Audrey Wasilewski, who just has such a fantastic tune as the Tavern Keeper. Maybe it's because I nearly crap myself laughing with the revelation that Fred the Horse can not only talk, but is voiced by Fred Stoller. Either way you look at it, Songs of the Dark Lantern, while not offering like a whopping huge amount of story significance and kind of tiptoeing that line of self-contained, just does a lot more for me than the last episode. And now we're officially at the halfway point, and the point in my watch through where I admittedly did start to question the pacing of Over the Garden Wall. The aforementioned hilarious John Cleese role is found in this episode, with Cleese taking up the mantle of Unky Endicott, and we do see some really nice character development between Warrant and Beatrice. But this is another episode that feels mostly self-contained. I just couldn't help but keep thinking, do they really have time for this? And don't get me wrong, I'm still enjoying the series. I'm still enjoying this episode. I'm still laughing and I'm still along for the ride. But I just couldn't help wondering why this time wasn't more devoted to giving the Beast time to shine, or offering some more background or lore with his relationship to the Woodsman. What about the origins of the Woodsman in this land? Or more of his relationship with his daughter so that Endritvale can just hit like a freight train. I would have loved to see that as opposed to the admittedly funny shenanigans in the mansion, but I digress. Episode 6, Lullaby in Frogland, really picks things back up and gets this ball rolling with a jaw-droppingly great song from George Washington the Frog, as well as some seriously good animation and some really charming character work on the background frogs. Like, they had no reason to make them look this good or personable, but every single one really caught my eye. The end reveal also had me shook as the boys finally make it to Adelaide's only to discover that she's an evil witch and that Beatrice had been stringing them along the entire time in return for her own favor from Adelaide. The boys escape Adelaide's, and from this point going forward, the story really doesn't stop charging ahead. Even though the next episode, The Ringing of the Bell, veers ever so slightly into self-contained territory. But you can call me a hypocrite because this episode gets a massive passing grade from me. The animation is stellar. The twist with Lorna actually got me. Like, I didn't see any of that coming. And to top it all off, you have Tim Curry playing this, which is both disturbing and hilarious. The story also chooses now to really feed into the loss of hope motif, which has some pretty big consequences going into the endgame, and for the most part it's done pretty subtly here. The next episode, Babes in the Wood, originally infuriated me as, if I'm gonna be 100% honest, this is Over the Garden Wall's only real miss with music for me, despite a really great performance from Mark Bodner as the North Wind. This episode, at least for the first half, really feels like filler material. And with only 2 episodes left, one of which being a flashback episode to detail how the boys got lost in the unknown in the first place, I just could not believe we were wasting time with this. At least, that's how I used to feel. So, 2 major things for this episode. One is, I realized that the writers were intentionally doing this, especially when they highlighted that what was going on in the Cloud City dream world had real-world consequences, a detail which I absolutely adore. And 2, the ending sequence, starting right from when Greg makes his wish all the way till the end of the episode, literally made the hairs on my arm stand up and has me mumbling, holy crap, oh my god, holy crap, right up until I see end credits. This ending is a sucker punch, a rug pull, and a double take all rolled into one. And when you contrast the end of this episode with the beginning of this episode, it becomes clear what the writers were going for, and they achieved this with maximum success. Sitting ovation, because I'm too lazy to stand and screw with the camera placement settings again. I did also learn that sometimes I'm just stupid, and you know what, for all intents and purposes, my brain don't work too good every now and then. So my apologies to the team for just straight up not understanding what they were going for here, and for ever calling this one filler. This is a fantastic episode, and has one of the tensest endings I've ever seen in my life, honestly. As previously stated, the penultimate episode is a flashback showing how Wirt and Greg wound up in the unknown and what they were up to before then. And yeah, I'm completely sold on this. Over the Garden Wall at this point really hasn't taken its foot off the gas since episode 6, and a breather episode right before the finale serves the pacing surprisingly well. Mind you, it's nothing mind-blowing, but it gives us some good background information on Wirt and Greg, and is as charming as anything associated with these 2 lovable characters. And I'm gonna be honest, I just found it insanely cute how this episode tries to justify every single small detail we've seen in the series thus far. We didn't specifically need to know where Wirt's outfit came from. We didn't need to know why Greg is wearing a teapot on his head, where the Rockfax rock came from, or what the brothers were up to before they got lost in the unknown. But it's all done with such an adorable attention to detail that it had me wondering how I lived without any of this information before the show eventually gave it to me. One final side note for this episode, every single thing that Cole Sanchez says as Jason Funderburker makes me lose my mind laughing every single time. The performance just guts me every time, and the reveal of who Jason Funderburker is and what he looks like. Jason Funderburker is pretty much hilarious to like most of the 5 senses. After an unforgettable ride, we arrive at the end, and I won't spoil the ending, but man, this is one hell of an episode. The pacing, the reveals, the voice work from the cast, the animation, the tension, everything here is just firing on all cylinders. And Over the Garden Wall is both trying to give you a heart attack and trying to yank the tears from your eyes at the same time, and they are just hitting a bullseye with everything they attempt here. The reveal with the truth about the lantern had my mouth hanging open in disbelief. The Beast's words to Wirt about the loss of hope hits like a freaking tanker truck. The events of this episode just culminate into this beautiful finale and a payoff to everything, literally everything this show has promised us throughout its amazing run, as well as some great surprises just thrown into the mix. I wish this episode would have ran for just a little bit longer, but when the music kicks in as we take our final look back at all of the denizens of the unknown, and Wirt and Greg finally return home, the credits just begin to roll and our romp through the unknown comes to a close. Over the Garden Wall is a rarity in today's animation world. While more and more series are lazy and meandering and committed to the idea of just bloating way past the point where they're even watchable anymore, Over the Garden Wall knows exactly what it wants to be and exactly what direction it wants to go. Even though I picked on a few episodes across this review, the series never felt confused about its characters or what direction it wanted the story to go in. There is some pacing dissonance, and I truly believe the show would have benefited from maybe a couple of more episodes to really flesh out the Beast as our main thread here and give us more insight into his world and his character. But for the most part, Over the Garden Wall delivers a witty, charming, authentic, and consistent experience. The aesthetics of the unknown and its characters blend together so effortlessly that no matter how random or bizarre a character or setting may seem, it never feels jarring or out of place. Everything feels like it belongs due to the pre-established rules of the world. Rules that, by both design and character, were expertly laid out to us in the opening minutes. Over the Garden Wall makes you crave more, but cements a concrete ending for this world and its main characters, letting you know that there's not really more to tell, at least pushing forward in time with Wirt and Greg. There are a series of comics that released after the series ended that expand on some of the gaps between episodes and serve as both sequels and prequels to the show, and I would love to get my hands on those for a little bit more. That's the way to do it if you write this, in my eyes, damn near perfect story and don't want to ruin it by delving into another series or another miniseries or event. From what I understand, there actually is a comic focusing on Anna, the woodsman's daughter, and I would love to read that to get some background information. But as we come to an end and as it all stands, Over the Garden Wall is a series that I just loved spending time with. The first time through, I watched it all in one shot by myself. And the second time through, I pestered a couple of my brothers into watching it with me. One of them being the brother I've previously talked about that got me into shows like Gravity Falls and Regular Show, both shows that I've done reviews for that were received pretty highly on this channel. So it's nice to know that I was finally able to return the favor because he loved Over the Garden Wall as well. In short, Over the Garden Wall is a show that after you finish watching it, you want everyone to know about it. It's simply a viewing experience that you don't want to keep to yourself. A very special thank you to all the commenters across our videos that recommended this one to me, and thank you for helping me get lost into the unknown. And for ZeitgeistOG, I be Fatman, and that was my take on Over the Garden Wall. I mean, I loved it. I adored it. I've watched it twice in 2 weeks leading up to the recording of this, and I almost want to go back for one more round.
Stop it. Get some help.
I highly recommend it. If you guys haven't seen it, it's like barely over 2 hours. It's a great watch. It's something you can knock out in one sitting. And if you have seen it, please sound off. Again, this is another one I'd like to try to pick stuff that not everybody with a YouTube account is talking about or has talked about. And maybe it's just because I just watched it and I'm ignorant to it, but I don't see a lot of Over the Garden Wall stuff. So it was fun to take a look at this and bring this video to life. What do you want to see me talk about next? Sound off. I mostly do animation, but for those who missed it, if I can just show for myself, I did do Malcolm in the Middle a little while ago, and that was pretty well received. What do you want me to take a look at next? What did you guys think of Over the Garden Wall? And thank you guys for your support across these admittedly time-consuming retrospectives. We appreciate you being here, and I have rambled for way longer than enough. So for ZeitgeistOG, I've been Fatman, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you for watching. Hit that stupid little bell and the subscribe button on your way out. Make me work. Created, one more time, I guess. Creepy vibe that's present in something like Courage the Cowardly Dog. Ugh. One more time. Cuphead or a Hat in Time. Most. Ugh. Let me do that line one more time. Over the garden wall debuted. My God. Talking's f***ing hard today. None other than Frodo Baggins himself, Elijah Wood, brings Wirt to life. I f***ed that up. None other than Elijah Wood himself. One more time, talking is really hard today. I don't know why. I'm so tired. Greg is loud, funny, and bombastic. One more time. Greg is loud, funny, and bombastic. I'm Arabic. I should know how to say bomb. But Wirt does get a few chuckles and they. So into the. Hitting puberty, I guess. At least, that's how I used to feel.